She never intended to be seen. That was the entire point of the disguise, the worn jeans, the thrift store cardigan, the drugstore glasses that pinched her temples. But as Aurora Vale slipped into the corner booth of the modest downtown steakhouse that smelled faintly of rosemary and warm bread, something inside her stirred for the first time in years. She wasn't sure if it was hunger, exhaustion, or the heavy loneliness she had been carrying inside her chest like a locked iron box, but she felt it the moment she stepped inside. She had come here simply to hide, to escape the corporate world that worshipped her name, but knew nothing of her heart. She never imagined that the man placing a glass of water on her table would change her life, or that the small folded paper he would later slip beside her plate would bring her entire world to a standstill. If you believe in kindness, in timing, and in second chances that arrive when life feels heaviest, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Everyday Kindness. Your support helps bring more healing stories to the world. Aurora stared at the laminated lunch menu, pretending to read it, though nothing on the page truly registered. Her mind was replaying boardrooms, press statements, investors calling her a genius, while newspapers labeled her the coldest heart in the billionaire world. They didn't know about the insomnia. They didn't know about the solitude. They didn't know that she hadn't laughed, truly laughed, in over 3 years. She had lost both parents unexpectedly, built an empire in their honor, and ended up with everything except the one thing she craved: connection. Genuine human connection, the kind money couldn't buy or fake. From the corner of her eye, she noticed the waiter approaching again. He moved with practiced calm, but not the empty efficiency she saw in expensive restaurants. His walk carried weight, a weariness softened by determination. He had warm eyes, the kind that hinted at struggles survived rather than avoided. His name tag read Jason Hart, and the name fit him. He looked like someone who'd lived 1,000 quiet heartbreaks and still showed up with a soft smile. Aurora ordered the steak simply because it was the first thing she saw clearly on the page, but she watched Jason more than she watched the menu. She couldn't explain why, but she felt like he wasn't merely serving tables. He was carrying something heavy, something hidden in the way he double-checked her water glass or muttered something under his breath as he hurried back toward the kitchen. She had spent years studying people in boardrooms, learning to see the truth behind polished faces. And this man was drowning in something. She felt the echo of it in her bones. As Aurora waited for her food, the sun drifted through the restaurant's large windows, warming her back. Daytime crowds came and went, chatting casually as if the world were kinder than she knew it to be. She tried to immerse herself in the normalcy of it all, the clinking glasses, the distant chatter, the sizzling coming from the open kitchen. But her thoughts kept circling back to the waiter and the quiet storm living behind his eyes. When Jason returned with her plate, he placed the food gently before her, but his hand trembled just slightly. She noticed. She noticed everything. He murmured a polite thank you for her patience and walked away before she could even smile in return. Only when she reached for her fork did she see it. A small, neatly folded note tucked beneath the edge of her napkin. Her breath caught. She didn't know him. He didn't know her. Why would a stranger risk slipping her a note at work? She hesitated before opening it, her heart fluttering in a way she hadn't felt since long before wealth had swallowed her youth. When she unfolded the paper, her pulse stopped. The note contained only one line, handwritten in careful, uneven script. If you're here because the world feels heavy today, please don't give up. Aurora stared, stunned. She didn't know whether to cry or sit perfectly still. No one, absolutely no one, had said anything like that to her in years. She blinked hard, swallowing a tight knot forming in her throat. How had he known? How could a stranger sense something she never allowed others to see? Her reaction must have given something away, because when Jason passed by again, he glanced at her with guarded uncertainty, as if bracing for trouble. She didn't call out to him. She didn't need to. The note had said more than 100 conversations could have. Throughout the meal, she watched quietly as he worked. She noticed how he switched between customers and a small boy sitting at a corner table with crayons and homework sheets. The boy had the same tired determination in his eyes, his father's eyes. Every few minutes, Jason would ruffle his hair or bring him a cup of juice. Aurora's heart sank when she realized the truth. Jason was a single dad working a double shift, barely staying afloat, yet somehow finding room to care about a stranger's pain. For the first time in years, Aurora finished her meal with intention, absorbing every sound and movement around her like she was awakening from a long sleep. She didn't reveal who she was. She didn't need to ruin the purity of what had happened. Instead, she left a generous tip, far too generous, but she tucked it inside another note, one she wrote with a shaky hand. Your kindness reached someone who desperately needed it. Thank you more than you know. She placed it under the corner of her plate and left quietly, unsure whether Jason would ever connect the fragile woman in the thrift store cardigan with Aurora Vale, one of the wealthiest women in the country. But fate was not finished with them. The next afternoon, Aurora returned, not because she had planned to, but because she hadn't been able to stop thinking about the man who had seen her invisible hurt. She came without the disguise this time. Her hair was brushed into a soft wave. She wore a simple white blouse. She was not trying to be recognized, but she wasn't hiding either. When Jason came to take her order, he froze mid-step. He recognized her eyes before anything else, and she recognized that flicker of confusion as he tried to reconcile the fragile stranger from yesterday with the confident woman sitting before him now. She sensed him wondering whether he had crossed a boundary, whether she was here to reprimand him. Instead, she simply offered a small, heartfelt nod that eased the tension in his face instantly. Aurora grew curious about him, about the weight he carried, the exhaustion beneath his polite smile. She listened to every detail of the restaurant around her, searching for clues, until she saw the restaurant manager scolding him harshly near the counter. Jason's posture shifted, shoulders tight as stone, yet he said nothing. Aurora's instincts flared. Moments later, she overheard the reason. Jason was late, again, because his son was sick, because he had no babysitter, because life kept throwing him storms. Aurora sat there, stunned. A man struggling this hard had used his one moment of breath not to save himself, but to save her. Over the next week, Aurora returned again and again. She always sat in Jason's section. She always observed without intruding. Slowly, quietly, she pieced together the fragments of his life. His wife had passed away 2 years earlier. He had sold everything to pay medical bills. He was working 3 jobs. His son, Milo, was 7, but carried the worry of someone much older. It all made sense now. The tremble in Jason's hands, the exhaustion etched around his eyes. What Jason didn't know was that Aurora Vale had the power to change lives. But it wasn't power she wanted to use blindly. She wanted to understand him fully first, to know the man behind the kindness before she even considered stepping into his world. One sunny afternoon when the restaurant was quiet, Aurora watched Jason sit with his son during a short break. He pulled out Milo's math sheet, helping him sound out instructions. His patience was astonishing, his voice gentle, his presence steady and grounding. Aurora felt something ache inside her chest, an ache she had forgotten existed. She realized then that Jason Hart was wealthy in ways she had never been. It took days for Aurora to gather the courage to leave him another note, not as the lonely woman from a corner booth, not as the billionaire the media obsessed over, but as someone whose life had been quietly and profoundly shifted. She waited until the afternoon rush ended. When the moment felt right, she stood, walked to the counter, and slipped a carefully folded letter into his hand. Then she left, heart pounding. Jason opened it only after finishing his shift. His breath caught when he read, "You may never know how deeply your kindness reached me. I was drowning that day. You didn't just give me hope, you reminded me that goodness still exists. If ever you need support for your son or yourself, I want to help, not because I pity you, but because you helped me first. Aurora Vale. The name hit him like a shockwave. He reread it 3 times. He suddenly understood why she looked familiar, why her posture held a quiet strength. But his fear wasn't about her wealth. He feared she might think he had been kind to her for gain. He knew the world treated people like Aurora differently, always wanting something. Yet his letter to her had been the purest truth he'd offered anyone in years. The next morning, Jason rushed outside when he saw Aurora waiting near the entrance. She wasn't dressed like a billionaire. She wasn't guarded or distant. She stood there with a softness he didn't know powerful people could possess. And for the first time in the warm light of day, 2 people who had been quietly broken finally saw each other fully. What followed wasn't dramatic, it wasn't flashy. It was steady, patient, healing. Aurora helped arrange care for Milo, not with extravagance but with genuine intention. Jason refused charity, but he accepted partnership. Aurora created a community fund in the restaurant's neighborhood, supporting single parents, though she never once mentioned Jason's name. She encouraged him to pursue a better job, one that aligned with his strengths, and he, in return, became the grounding force in her life, the reminder that she was more than her empire, more than her losses, more than the loneliness that had consumed her for years. Their lives didn't transform overnight. They changed slowly, like sunrise creeping over a dark horizon. Aurora began sleeping again. Jason began smiling again. Milo found joy in the simplest things, and together they rebuilt hope in each other's worlds, brick by fragile brick. If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, and subscribe to Everyday Kindness. Your engagement helps spread stories that remind the world that compassion still matters. Before we end, please comment, kindness can save a life if you believe small moments can change everything. And so, under the bright daylight of ordinary afternoons, an undercover lonely billionaire and a struggling single father found something rare, something money couldn't buy and hardship couldn't break. They found connection, healing, and the gentle magic of human kindness arriving exactly when the soul needs it most.